Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court and CPS issues. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, and today we're going to honor alienated parents next month on International Parental Alienation Awareness Day. Epiphany Awaits is offering a faith-based retreat for alienated parents with both in-person and a Zoom option on April 23rd through the 25th, 2021 at the Resolution Center in Jacksonville, Florida, for a weekend of support with a journey with speakers including Dr. Mark Roseman and other professionals focused on guidance, friendship, and compassion. Please contact epiphaniesawait@gmail.com. That's epiphaniesawait@gmail.com for more information, and scholarships are available, and just email your request for application and registration form. And this evening, we have a guest. She is my publisher. Her name is Melanie Davis. And after suffering the loss of her 7-month daughter, her name was Brynn, to SIDS, Melanie found healing and purpose by sharing her story with those who could be encouraged and inspired by the wisdom and purpose she found in her daughter's death. She developed the Triumph program to assist others to discover, write, and share their own Triumph stories, and founded Triumph Press, which publishes the Triumph book series, as well as books and stories to others who have overcome adversity. She has published multiple books addressing parental alienation and narcissism, including my own book, which was Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Melanie has now partnered with Dr. Mark Roseman and Preserving Family Ties Publishing. Now, also, Melanie has been an advocate for veterans since she wrote and published Heroes, the second book in the Triumph series. She has spent the past 4 years working with forgotten veterans, which are incarcerated veterans, providing the Triumph program, Overcoming PTSD, and expanding it into a holistic reentry program called Honor Mentoring. She received the 2019 Texas Governor Award for Service to Veterans, and a congressional commendation from the Congressman Brady, and most recently the 2020 Peace Builders Community Award for her programs which serve incarcerated veterans and their neighbors. So I totally welcome my publisher, Melanie Davis. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for letting me join your podcast. This is something we've talked about. We're finally doing it.
Yes. Well, you've been so busy. Everyone's busy.
Yeah, everyone is busy, but it's good timing. It's really good timing. I'm especially excited because, as you shared in my bio, I'm working with Dr. Mark Roseman and his publishing label, and I'm really excited about that and being able to reach your listeners and those that have their stories to share, especially on that topic. So,
yes, Dr. Mark Roseman, he has a lot to offer. I interviewed him and he did an astounding interview on Slam the Gavel podcast. I think that was in January, but yeah, he just totally rocked it.
Yeah, he's an expert in that topic, which is one I've gotten familiar with because of publishing books like yours and a few others that kind of led me to you.
Yeah. Well, and also Rod McCall led me to you. He wrote for the Love of Eryk, Surviving Divorce, Parental Alienation, and Life After. And he told me to go to you to get my book published. And I handed you a big mess of 324 pages, remember? And then
oh yeah, how could I forget? Lots of court transcripts. A lot of very, very interesting excerpts from your life experience.
Yeah, and you did really well. You did so well with this book, enough to attract a Canadian producer.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let everybody know that's not how long the book is now.
Right? Oh yeah. The book is only 100. We've got it down to 160 pages. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. That was like performing a miracle right there.
It's very readable, very approachable, And you know what I love about your book is the takeaways. Every chapter, at the end of it, you give these kernels of wisdom from what happened in your life that you share in that particular chapter. So it's really a guide for those that are going through court abuse, I would say. And you became such a warrior for yourself, and succeeded in some very important places like Superior Court, right?
Yeah.
And now you're a warrior for others. And so yes, your book attracted a filmmaker. What is the name of his company?
It's Manx Motion Picture Studios.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's MANKS.
Yeah, he read your book and contacted you, and I don't think your book was out a month.
No,
if I
it was
remember
like
correctly.
About 3 weeks.
Yeah, before he came along and wanted to turn it into a screenplay. And wow, that was really exciting for both of us, because it meant that I was able to take your manuscript and make it interesting enough that someone like him saw a movie in it. Of course, that your life experience you're the Erin Brockovich of family court. You know, that's kind of the phrase I keep using, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah.
You know, that movie, Erin Brockovich, before that movie, people didn't talk about protecting the health, and you know, in that case I think it's the groundwater that
it was being contaminated.
And you know, or just, you know, nobody was talking about or getting that concerned about one particular town. But I think it really did get people to wake up, not just to that situation, but to being advocates for others.
Right.
And so I think that's why this film about you would be so amazing, because you're an advocate. In that movie, the problem was the groundwater in this town, and in your situation, you represent untold numbers of parents that are going through tragedy, and it's hard to even put a word to it. It's more than that. It's just shouldn't exist. It's injustice. It's infuriating injustice, because it's happening on so many levels throughout the court system, and just even the way that one parent will treat another is hard to wrap our brains around. Of course, we've learned a lot about a term called narcissism, which is usually the thing that's happening, that's really at the core of it all, is when one parent is so completely lacking in any empathy at all, and use their own children as weapons to hurt the other parent. It's hard to comprehend that. And narcissism is really such a disorder in the brain, that you can't make sense of it. And I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that's happening as people are going, wait, why is this happening? And then the courts support it and encourage it for the sake of earning money. Of course, I think everybody listening probably knows what we're talking about. But my point is, it's a very widespread, I would even say growing problem, because our society is so disconnected from values and from goodness. You know, systemically, I really think that we are creating narcissists because these children go through this. That's what makes them a narcissist. You know, it's a disconnect from your own spirit, because of abuse that causes this. So it's very concerning, and I think it's such an important film to be made, because we've got to shine a light on it in order to reverse this destruction direction that we're still headed in. It seems to be. I don't know. Do you feel like we're making progress?
I think we would be making progress if we abolished the family court system. If we totally got rid of it and put everything through civil court, and also add tamper-proof mics and video cameras in these courtrooms so people can see how these judges actually behave. And there was a case in Minnesota where 31 judges recused themselves. So, I mean, that was a big, yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, I'd say we're making progress from the standpoint that we have your book, and we have Rod McCall's book, which is also a horrible experience. His ex-wife, who was alienating him, finally the jury saw through it and awarded him full custody, and his ex-wife went home and shot their son and then herself. I mean, let's talk about the worst outcome. And yet his book does so much to highlight not just his own story, but stories of others in the solutions. But I think that having your books out there for people to read, and they are reading them, and others have their stories to tell, which is one of the reasons that Mark Roseman is starting Preserving Family Ties Publishing, to give people that chance to be a part of. I think it's part of the solution, because the more we share these experiences and the more we reach out across the metaphysical world in this way, because we have this amazing ability to touch one another through writing, through social media. I think we're forming a defense that is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. But in this podcast that you do is so important, because it's part of rallying the troops, really, because those who are listening can say, I want to be a part of that. And Dr. Roseman has a magazine now that's just come out, that Contemporary Family Magazine.com. You can go and get that subscription. And I was just flipping through it this morning. I saw your book is featured in there, and you wrote an article. But man, it's really a powerful tool, a powerful resource. The messages and the information in that magazine. These are the things that help, because what's going to happen eventually is that there's so much light shining on the issue that those who are perpetrating it, whether they be the narcissistic parent or the courts that are just feeding off of that, it's not going to be hidden much longer.
Right, I agree. There was also a case when those 31 judges recused themselves. There was a case where a 14-year-old actually outsmarted a judge by tape recording her, send her to the abuser while putting her mother in jail. Yeah. So that is out there. That is out there.
Speaking of mother going to jail.
Oh yes.
That happened to you. That's in your book. And honestly, I don't know if favorite is the right word to use, but it actually is my favorite part of your book. And you were sent there because, it was the debtor's prison. They kept saying how much you owed, even though you'd lost your job because of the accusations. You weren't making that money. But what I love about it is the spirit that you had in that, when you went through that experience, even just sitting in the holding cell and you start singing, because the acoustics are so good.
Yeah.
No, and just, really, your spirit, you're a fighter, but you haven't lost your ability to just appreciate something as beautiful as music in a jail cell. It's just amazing to read. Sorry, I just love your book. Okay. I spent a lot of time in your book, so
yeah, you did. I'm so sorry.
So I have favorite parts. No, I loved it.
Because in that holding cell, it was like probably 42 degrees. It had to have been.
Yeah.
And so I started, as I started doing a scale, because I thought, well, it's all concrete. This should be good acoustics. So I started singing Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes. It's a beautiful song. It's very haunting. And sang falsetto, which is really cool. So I was just singing that. And then the guard put another woman in with me, and she came up to me and shook my hand, and she said, "I'm blessed to meet you." And she said, "What what have you been doing in here?" I said, "I've been singing." She said, "Well, what have you been singing?" So we started singing together, and that's when the guard poked his head in and said, "Oh, it's so nice to hear, singing in here instead of screaming."
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Instead of screaming. Get me on the topic of prison, the need for prison reform. I don't want to go there right now because I could spend the whole time talking about that. But yeah, I've been working with incarcerated veterans and seeing how talk about corruption in our justice system. It's every bit as bad in our prison system.
Exactly.
I'm a real fighter. I'm a real fighter for that. Yeah. So, and they go hand in hand, as you mentioned. Parents get sent to jail and prison on accusations,
right?
And it happens all the time, and so we have to fix them both.
Yeah, it's a very scary world we live in when anyone can make an accusation, but then they don't have to back it up with who made the accusation, and that's got to change in legislation.
Or back it up with any evidence, and then when it does come to light that they lied, there's really not a severe punishment for that. So there's nothing to discourage people from using the courts like they do, because there isn't a consequence for lying, and so it's heavy. It's a lot to take in sometimes when we're trying to make a difference. It can be overwhelming.
And it's such a broken system. But you also published Catenya McHenry's book, which is Married to a Narcissist: Enduring the Struggle and Finding You Again.
Yes. And that was another fantastic book that really takes you through what she went through, but like similar to yours, but in her own style. She shares the wisdom, and she is triumph. She is a triumph, and she got through it, and she's doing great. Beautiful woman. She was in television, and I believe she's out in, I want to say Georgia or Alabama. I can't remember now, but she's yeah. So that kind of leads to something that so I guess just kind of take a minute. One of the things that I'm really out to do, in addition to publishing and helping people share their stories, is to help people heal. And that's really I'd say the purpose of my existence and the purpose of the things I've been through. I'm not a target parent of alienation. I know of it because of helping you all with your stories, but I did suffer a death loss of my little 7-month-old daughter, and that's a mother's worst nightmare. And but I felt on the day that she passed away that there was purpose, and it really helped me immediately. I felt a very strong sense of purpose, and just over the course of my life and processing her death through my journaling, and then taking the process of my journaling and turning it into something called the Triumph Program, which is a narrative therapy. That's what I really went into the prisons with to help our veterans, and this is a Triumph Program for veterans. But I've learned a lot about facing tragedy, and there's two principles, and I think this applies to any kind of adversity, whether it's death loss or PTSD in the case of our veterans, and of course you all have PTSD dealing with alienating parents in the court system. There's really two principles that I strive to share with people when I get the chance, and this program is based on the core principles. The first is that the more purpose you find in tragedy, the less painful it becomes, and that there's powerful healing in service to others. And no matter what you're going through, you can find purpose in it. And I would even say that purpose is usually in some form, maybe always in some form, within service to others, doing something from what you've been through to make the world better, to help even just one other person. And that's what you do when you write your book, when you share your poetry, and doing this podcast. And that's really the message of the Triumph book series. Now, those are a collection of books that every story, or every chapter is a different story, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul. Except this chapters are longer, the stories are deeper. And the first book in the series called just the Triumph book, because I didn't know I was writing a series. I just wanted to write a book of stories from people who'd endured severe tragedies of all sorts. A lot of them were in the news when they happened, and how they got through it. And every story shows how that person found a way to help others or make a difference in the world as an outcome of their experience. And then and that's when I started my publishing company, Triumph Press. And was really just to publish my own books and to keep creative control. I enjoyed the process so much that I wrote another book. And I say write, but in some cases I would interview the person or the veteran. In the case of the second book, it's called Heroes, and ghostwrite for them, or they'd write it and I'd edit, or we'd kind of work on it together. But so Heroes was the second book, and that's 24 first-person stories from veterans from World War II up through our recent conflicts. And then the third book in the series is called Raising Wheels, and that's stories of people who are living life in wheelchairs, or parents who are raising children who are disabled. And it's we started a nonprofit called Raising Wheels to bring more accessibility into the world. And I co-authored that one with Melissa Kopp. And she was on Fixer Upper. Tim Tebow teamed up with Chip and Joanna Gaines, and they renovated the home for their two little boys in wheelchairs.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so it's it's really not just a book for parents of children in wheelchairs or someone who's disabled. It's so inspiring, the adversities that they have faced and truly overcome. But where I'm going with this is you and I are going to work together on a book in this series. We've been talking about this, and just being able to collect stories from people who've been through the kinds of things that you have been through, the abuse of the courts, been through parental alienation, but who are at a good place in their lives, that found their way through, whether or not it's reunification with the children, but just finding themselves and finding peace and happiness in life again. I think that's an important book to be written. And so we don't have a title yet.
Yeah, it's so hard, because after I finished my book, I really kind of didn't have a title, but we found the title really quick. You and I did.
Yeah. So you and I were discussing this, and we thought, well, when we are on the show today, let's share this with everybody who's listening, and maybe we could make it a game or a contest even for people to come up with ideas. What to title a book of triumph stories from people who endured the things that we just talked about.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good if people could, they can email me or you. How do you want to do that?
Let's send them. Well, let's see. First of all, what should we get? I think it needs to have a really neat prize for the person who submits a title that we use. You can have the credit for being the one to come up with the title of the book. Maybe you even have a story to submit. We should let people let us know if they want to be a part of the book too. But yeah, let's have them. Let's send them to you.
Okay. And I can give them my personal email, which is mariannepetri3@gmail.com. And then I can forward them to you and we can talk about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what should we give them as a prize?
Well, okay, from the book Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, I created the cover of the book. So
Yeah,
which was
you're an artist. You painted it, right?
yeah,
It's a big
yeah,
it's actually a big canvas painting
right.
initially that you were able to photograph and use as part of the art for the cover, which is really stunning.
Right. And I made 8x10 prints. And whoever wins, I can send them an autographed 8x10 print if they like.
I love that. I love that. And this painting, to describe the painting for those who haven't seen your book, and we can go look it up. But
Okay, well, the painting, I think I might have it on my Instagram, which is my Instagram handle is Guitar Piece, GUITARPEACE. But it shows her there, and I took pictures of it in the process of making it. So I took one of my husband's old beat up T-shirts without him knowing, and
oh, now he's gonna know. Does he listen to your podcast?
I hope he doesn't. I think he's too busy.
No.
He's working.
The things you can get away with.
Oh, I know it. Well, luckily it was kind of soiled, which was fine. But I posed for it. I had my friend take my picture like as if I was holding the scales of justice and the sword.
So it's a painting, just for those who have not seen it, it's a painting of Lady Liberty.
Or Justice.
Lady Justice, right, sorry. Lady Justice, because she's holding the scale in one hand and a sword in the other.
And she's holding them in a biased position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she has her blindfold on, but she's got one eye open,
mm-hmm.
which shows that, there is no justice.
Yeah.
And then there's the sword, and it's just there, dangling there. And I really should have, so I took that T-shirt, which was kind of cool. I wanted to make it 3-dimensional. So I took the T-shirt and I used water and glue, and I just started shaping, the dress around the figure. And so that way it looks like 3-dimensional.
Oh, that's how you're able to
Yeah.
know how that needed to look. Ooh, a little behind the scenes, behind the thought process, I guess you could say, of how you created that.
Yeah, and I also cut out, like wrinkles that would be, in the gown.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Lady Justice also appears with a snake at her feet. And I didn't put the snake in because, I just don't know. I just didn't want to put the snake in.
I think it looks good without it. It's a stunning book cover. It was really great that you provided that to build the cover around, and the color scheme and this, it's very sharp.
And I also put like silver foil around it as well.
Yeah.
But I wanted her to look like, Lady Justice has already knows the outcome of your case. That's kind of what I wanted to portray with that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think that would be a fantastic prize, an autographed print of your painting. So what we're looking for, just to clarify, so I've got this series called the Triumph Book, and then so far we've got the first Triumph book, one called Heroes, one called Raising Wheels. I'm working on another one. It's a collection of stories from people who were in prison that are succeeding upon reentry to help those who are currently in prison, and that one is titled Breaking Bars. And there's another titled Overcoming the Streets that will be stories of people who've been homeless that are succeeding. All of these are associated with nonprofits and raise money for the people who that they represent. So that's just some ideas of the types of titles that we already have in the series. So we're looking for a title that succinctly captures the victory over the challenges with the injustice and the cruelty of court and parental alienation. Something catchy and short and triumphant. So,
Oh yeah, that would be good.
let's see what people come up with. And,
So yeah, people,
yeah.
come on.
Yeah. And if you have a story to share, you can learn about these books. I'm trying to think of the best place to send them. If you go to, well, I'm trying to think if I've got one, a sample out there to read. I can't think of what I used to. I need to update my website. But where I really want to send people to, if they're interested in publishing their own book, is Mark Roseman's Preserving. Well, actually, you go to contemporaryfamilymagazine.com, and on the bar on the right is the Preserving Family Ties Publishing, and that's where you can come and learn about getting help with your own book or story. But for the Triumph books, they're every chapter is a different story, so it's not too lengthy. But I guess around 10 to 15 12-point font pages in Word document. It's kind of a rough link to write a story for a Triumph book. But definitely would be a great way to share wisdom, techniques, things you've learned, do's and don'ts. I think it can be really helpful for those that are dealing with this. They're kind of in the throes of it. Yeah. And just to show, and just to be a collection that, a record of what's going on, as far as a movement towards change. It'd be good for that too. So.
Yeah, I mean, even like people that are pro se litigants, if they want to share, something triumphant that happened, it's so rare that something triumphant does happen with a pro se.
Or maybe it seems rare. Maybe it's maybe we need to just collect it and give people hope to go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, right.
And not give up. Sometimes you have to believe something is possible before you can do it. And the best way to believe something is possible is just to see that somebody else did it. That's really what this is about. These stories and these books is just helping people achieve what they're striving to, and giving them the encouragement and the belief that they can do it, because there's examples of others who have done it.
Right. And people need to hear that encouragement, because if you're representing yourself as a pro se litigant, or you're going through turmoil, you need to be encouraged, because sometimes your family members are not going to be encouraging, or your friends may not be encouraging. You can have friends turn on you, which I never thought would happen to some of my friends. But it's like people need to hear something positive.
Yeah. And sometimes we just have to come through those pages and be that friend and be that supporter. And that's I think we feel connected to people when we read their books and read their stories. I know people will feel connected to you when they read your book. It's raw, it's honest, and it really does have moments of triumph in it. So even though you're not where you want to be today, I think you are really in a wonderful place, just knowing you and what you've been through. I mean, you nearly died going through this, just the health issues that it created for you, and heart attack that you had. Here you are, so strong, really fighting for this cause, and giving this platform to all the others who are fighting for this cause, giving them a voice. I just really commend you I'm just amazed by you, Marianne, because I know your story. And it just, I'm just so excited to get to work with you and be your friend. And gosh, I hope we see your film get made soon. We'll circle back to that. It's still, but it's winning awards in screenwriting contests. So,
Right.
what's the progress that you know of to date?
Well, the film will be called Custody Denied. And he is partially funded. So we're looking for, an A-list director, A-list actress. He wants it to be handled in an Aaron Brockovich fashion. And it's going to be inspired off my book. It's not going to be like my story. It's going to be, now you got a brief reading of part of a sample of his screenplay.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to see it, but you did. But
I'll say this. He is a fantastic screenwriter. It sucks you in. His style pulls you right in, and I can see why it's winning awards. I can. And, the story is great, but his talent is definitely there. I'm sure we'll see that film made if it's not set for release or even production yet, because we do have to raise the funds. But that's why it's good to talk about it, and maybe we'll get to the right actor.
Because when he first contacted me, his name is James Russell, and I Googled him, and then I called you. And then we got on a three-way conversation, and we talked, and he wanted me to sign over the book rights. It's like, why not? I mean, why not give it a shot? I find when you take chances in life, sometimes really cool things happen.
That's such a great point to make. You've been through so much. You're still struggling to reach people and to keep going. It takes a lot of energy, but gosh, you get this book published, and a month later, you've got a filmmaker wanting to take it on, and that's a triumph right there. It really is. And we have to celebrate these moments. I think that's really critical. Every positive thing that happens, and it doesn't have to be necessarily related to the thing that's worrying you. Like, we can't say, oh, I'm not going to be happy unless a positive thing happens in my court case. You know what I mean? Like, we got to say, gosh, I had this great thing happen in my life, and it might be completely unrelated, but we just have to celebrate the good things that happen. And now we're in the grind of trying to get a film funded, and that can take years. So if you've ever seen the stories of other films that are highly successful, I mean, I think Dances with Wolves, I want to say that took a decade or more, and that was all. There's quite a story.
Did I lose? There you are.
I love, sorry about that. I love knowing those stories, because you just see the final product and, you're wowed by it. You don't realize all the blood, sweat, and tears and stops and walls that it took to make something that's so great. And that every moment that something good happens, you just got to celebrate it and use it as fuel to keep going. Just keep going, Marianne.
Well, I was reading about a famous film. I can't think of the name of it. I don't know if it was Dances with Wolves or not. I'm not sure. But a director was fired 4 times during the film.
Now, that doesn't tell you how hard the industry can be. 4 times. Oh, that's good.
So a lot of things can happen, and it's going to be an important film to bring awareness to this whole family court issue. I mean, you read part of the screenplay, and I didn't. So, I mean, it's not, like I said before, it's not going to be all me.
It's not. It's based on your book, but it's a.
Like a launching pad or something.
Yeah, it's but it'll be good. It'll be good because I think it will definitely put a spotlight on the work you're doing, and that's important. Yeah. And those that you're associated with as
Mhm.
well. Everybody. It's just, it's really all about bringing it to light and
Mhm.
making it common knowledge, and people saying, hey, the truth is any of us could get dragged into court for any reason, whether
Yeah,
it's family
right.
court or criminal law or criminal justice. And
Mhm.
I've seen how that goes. And
Yeah.
your painting is spot on. We really don't have fairness in our courtrooms right now.
Mhm.
We have a wonderful constitution. I love it. And the principles behind our constitution and behind our justice system are right on, but we're not exercising them the way that we should.
Mhm.
So,
You
yeah.
know, another weird thing about my painting was before I met you, another publisher, I was working with another publisher, and they said, well, you're going to have to change your name.
Yeah.
And that's when I freaked out. And I was so mad. I was so mad. I took that painting and I painted my image in her face.
Oh, wow.
And because it's
Yeah.
like, well, if they're going to make me change my name, I want
I'm at
people to,
least going to be there visually.
yeah. So, and then
Oh,
I talked to Rod McCall. I messaged him and he said, go to Melanie. And so I went to you, and then you said, no, you have to use your name. How are you going to do book signings? And then COVID happened.
yeah. How are you going to speak? How are you going to
Right.
be that voice and that representative? You can't make this
So,
appear fictional.
right.
So,
And I think what you did, which was good, was that you took 324 pages and you basically turned it into a screenplay. I mean, so I
yeah.
think James Russell had it easy with that book.
Oh,
I
well,
think.
yeah. I know he worked hard, but yeah, I think that it probably did. I'm sure it gave him a lot of inspiration. Um, but yeah. So we did, just for the record, we did change names, just
Right.
not yours. so
Exactly.
so
Yes.
we're making sure nobody can come back and see you because we didn't actually name any real names. But all of the experiences in that book, of course, are true. So
Right.
if I tried to sue you, they would, you just never know how things will go in court, even if something's true. So so that was the change that we went with, is just to not actually name names. And I don't think it was necessary, even though it would be nice to have some kind of vindication towards those that did you wrong, from CPS to judges to lawyers, or to lawyers. But I just think the important accomplishment from your book is just to show what happens
Mm-hmm.
and stop all of them, rather than just to point towards a few as if they're some kind of an anomaly, which of course they're not. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, because it's so sad to think that, what happened to me can happen to anybody. And
Hmm.
so I try to speak out about it. And then you also helped design the logo for my podcast as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. You've been a fun project.
Yeah.
I have a real heart for this situation. Having worked with Rod McCall before you, I actually met Rod. I was hired by Rod because at the time I lived in the same town as him. And when his situation happened, I heard about it.
Mm.
It went out, of course, this mother kills her son and herself. It spread like wildfire, this information. And I remember hearing about it. And it was some years later when I got to meet him and work with him. And then to write his book, we actually put together this very last minute kind of, we called it our Parental Alienation think tank. Because I just wanted to bring people in that had dealt with it, gone through it, and I wanted to interview them and hear them, collect more content, because the first half of his book is his story, and then the other half of it is dealing with other people's experiences and what are the challenges, what are the solutions. And so we just put this little conference together, maybe a month out, and the attendance was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
We had people fly in from all over the country, all over the world. Ginger Gentile, the filmmaker of a recent Raising Family was
Mm-hmm.
there, taking pictures of people holding their signs, that had been erased, and it was phenomenal. So I really kind of got pulled into this through him, and then through working with you. And so I'm very excited to be working with Dr. Roseman and his magazine and his publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of let the listeners know that I'm the one that will myself and a staff, as we grow, will be working with you if you want to even just have a consultation about the possibility of writing something, maybe publishing a book, or no, I'm sure that Dr. Roseman's always looking for great articles to be submitted for his magazine that's going out internationally. I think he's
Oh,
really
yes.
putting together, between your podcast and his magazine and website, I really can see this, and others too, that maybe I don't know of and haven't met yet. I know there's some other great warriors out there in this arena. I can see the momentum building, and gosh, we get your film out there, and there, it's going to be a silver screen movie. It's like you said, a Aaron Brockovich kind of film where we have the A-list actress. Can you? I wish we could speed it up. I wish there was some way of speeding it up, because I just want to see that made and out there, because I know people will just be so drawn to this
Mm-hmm.
situation, and we can just put that much more emphasis on the needed changes. Like you mentioned at the beginning of this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, you talked about some of the changes that it's going to take for us to really feel like we're making progress.
Definitely. Well, they
Yeah.
made the film called Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo and Anne Hathaway and Tim
Hmm.
Robbins in it, about the
Hmm.
attorney Rob Bilott who fought DuPont. And I remember this
Wow.
uh, taking place when I was younger. And this case went on forever. It
Yeah.
went on from, I think it started
Mm.
in 93 or 94. And I think it's still kind of going. But, he fought and was victorious.
Yeah. You can win. You can win these things.
Yeah.
But the key is, and this was something you and I were talking about earlier before we got on here. But the key is that you have to be balanced in your life and paced in
Mm-hmm.
your process, because the right things will happen, and I believe that we're here to learn and to grow and to experience challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that when I'm not fighting so emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
and so with so much frustration and anger and all these negative feelings that come in, when you think of the word fight, you think of these kind of characteristics of someone who's
Mm-hmm.
fighting, right? But what I've learned in my life is I'm fighting a lot of battles as well. Like I said, for prison reform, and for our veterans, and for you, your causes. We can wear ourselves out when we become so fatigued that we're not effective at all. And I think it takes maybe some experiences of going through that before we start to realize that that's not doing the cause any good.
Mm-hmm.
And having health issues which creep up because of
Mm-hmm.
stress isn't
Mm-hmm.
doing the cause any good. And so we have to kind of find a real rhythm of being strong, but we have to do it in a way that's positive. There's so much more strength in positivity than there is in negativity. Even though we're justified in these negative emotions, we have to be positive. And I think the more we're positive, the more we attract to us the good things that will actually strengthen us to be victorious. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
not always easy to do. And there's going to be times and moments when you just feel defeated. And it seems like whatever this battle is bigger than you. And of course, fighting the court systems, and that's just, it is bigger than just you by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's why everybody has to unify.
Mhm.
fathers' rights movement and, all these other movements. We have to be together. You
Mhm.
can't break it out and say, well, it's just about fathers not getting enough access. It's no mother. There's mothers that have the same injustices happening to them, and until we all bond together and then become positive, that's when we make a difference. But when we're all in our little interests, our special interests, we're missing out on what we could be accomplishing. So,
Mhm.
and I think we're getting there. And that's what I love about the idea of publishing a book. It's a collection of stories of all different walks of life, all different races and genders and situations that kind of pull together.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Well, definitely. How can people reach you if they want to, say, talk to you about, their story? Maybe they might not want to talk to me, or, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I know that I have an email that Dr. Roseman set up for me. Let me see. It is Melanie.Davis at preservingfamilytiesmedia.com. And I spell my name Melanie and then Davis at preservingfamilytiesmedia.com.
Media.com. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's would be the web address as well then.
Yes.
Hope
Yes.
I've been saying it right. I know that they can get to the link to see the publishing information through his contemporaryfamilymagazine.com.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, because he was
yeah, and
amazing to interview. His podcast I did with him, he was amazing.
yeah. And I'm sure that he'll probably set up another way to get to True would be, I'm sure he'll have a contact form on his website as well. So.
Mhm. Well, that's good. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's been great being a part of this podcast. I appreciate you letting me be a guest and look forward to coming back on and maybe sharing more stories of successes and triumphs.
Oh, definitely. I always have return guests so people can follow up and see what else is going on in their lives. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read off my ending comments, but hang on, okay?
All righty.
Okay. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms that in turn perpetuate parental alienation. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again with Melanie and other guests that I will have in the future. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you. This is great.